Are we live?
We're live.
We are live for episode 6 of this Saranac Lake Effect Show. We are going a little bit off script today. We're not going to do a village board recap. I know our dedicated fans will be very disappointed, but that will return in a future episode. Today, we are excited that we actually have 2 guests to discuss an important topic with us, one that a lot of folks probably either haven't heard about, or if they have heard about it, don't know too much about it. So I want to introduce our people who have
guests,
chosen to give us time in
Right.
their very busy days to join us and humor us in this podcast where we're talking to each other and hopefully a few more people.
Yeah, thank you to our guests. So first, we've got Diane Fox, Superintendent of Schools for Saranac Lake School District, and Erika Bezio. And Erika, I think your title is Community Schools Coordinator, but you tell me if it's something different. Is that right?
We have a community school coordinator. I am the community school liaison.
Oh, the liaison.
Liaison.
Okay.
That sounds much cooler.
Way fancier.
Well, so I think that's, and so our topic today is the Saranac Lake School District. There's a million directions we could go with this conversation. But today we wanted to make sure we focused on the Community Schools Initiative, which is really exciting, really fun, somewhat unique, I would say, right, in the North Country at least. And we want to dive into that. And I think just the fact that we got Erika's title wrong speaks to it speaks to the growth of the program,
yeah.
Right? Because it's not just, you're just not flying solo anymore.
Correct.
which is great.
So that's how you turn a mistake into a positive, what you just did right there. So
Yes.
I was thinking on your feet.
Good.
Okay.
Really, once in a while I can do that. Only once in a while. So thanks again for having us. And we got a bunch of hard-hitting questions.
Be ready.
So I hope you have your all of
We're
your
ready.
data in front of you and everything like that. So, and I think, Justin, you said it well. I bet a lot of people are aware of different aspects or elements of the Community Schools Initiative, but they don't really know the umbrella, and they don't really know how expansive this has become in our community. So we're hoping to let, all our friends and family who are listening, because is that about it right
People
now?
who are generous enough to humor us
Yes.
and keep downloading the podcast over and over to make our downloads go up.
Yes, right,
So.
to make us feel better about ourselves. By the time they're done, they will know all about community schools.
Yeah, no. See, I don't go to a therapist. I just do a podcast where I talk to Jeremy. So,
all right. So first question is what is a community school?
So a community school is the hub of the community. It creates opportunities for outside agencies to come in and use the school as a starting point to expand their services to a captive audience. So a great example is mental health services are provided by citizen advocates, an outside agency right here at school. So in a normal model, children would have to leave school to receive those services by that agency, which often means they lose an entire day of instructional time because the appointment is an hour and requires transportation to and from the appointment. So by having citizen advocates here at school, children are able to just leave their classroom, have their full therapy appointment in school, and return to their classroom without a parent or a caregiver losing work time and with a minimal distraction to their education. So that's in a nutshell what community services in the school looks like and how the community school model opens those doors for those services to come in.
Well, it seems like you just hit on one of the, in many ways, a lot of us think it's a great thing, but this distance problem, right? As far as accessing services can really be a hardship on people in our neck of the woods, at least.
So often services are available at the county seat, and our school district has Essex County, Franklin County, and a tiny little piece of Clinton County. And when we started looking for services starting in 2018 and talking about community schools, you really had to head to Elizabethtown, Plattsburgh, or Malone to hit any type of community service. And the biggest obstacle to people receiving services is transportation. So the ability to actually travel in one direction was really prohibitive for families to receive the extra services.
Well, and it kind of seems like, I mean, so if you think about public schools back, hundreds of years ago when that model began in our country, and public schools were often the center of town. They were like the hub of activity. Over time, that changed, and this is not a return to that per se, but it is the idea of bringing people in. And so, how long has our district now been a community school?
We started talking about this in 2018. We thought we would start with a part-time person. And actually, Erika has a special title because she's a teacher on special assignment, because her job is actually twofold. She oversees our universal pre-K program and community schools. And we really felt like we had grown last year to the point where we weren't able to expand anymore as a one-person community school program. And so we actually hired a community school coordinator, and that person's other part of their job is to work with DEI work and support community schools. So each of the two people in our community school department have multiple hats that they wear.
And I think that, yeah. So we can talk more about some of these projects and initiatives that fall under the umbrella. But wanted to ask this because in New York State and around the country, there's actually definitions of community schools. There's specific programs. There's funding requirements. And correct me if I'm wrong, but at least in the past, Saranac Lake didn't even qualify to receive funding for community school initiatives. But it was, Diane, you felt that it was important to go down this path regardless. Can you talk more about that?
So some schools in New York State receive some set-aside funds. There's a mistaken idea that those funds are in addition to their state aid, and actually it's their state aid has some funds that they must spend on community schools. We did not have that, so our community school is funded through our regular funding streams and through many, many grants and donations, Turkey Trot being the largest donation we receive yearly. So we scrape together what we can. Erika and her team actually just received a very large grant, $775,000 a year for
5 years.
5 years for after school and around the school day programming. So we spend a lot of time trying to acquire grants, and the community is generous when we need anything. They're very generous, and providers, whether it's a doctor, dentist, eye care. It's amazing how giving our community is when we let them know we have a family in need.
Well, you mentioned after school activities as well. That's an interesting point because you first gave the example, Erika, about the mental health support being in school during the school day. But then there's also this aspect of after school, which is a problem for many parents everywhere. Of like, okay, well, if school gets out at 2:30, I'm not off work until 5. What am I doing in those two and a half hours? And so I know there's a lot of different activities that came along with this. So what are some of these after school activities that are being offered through the initiative?
So the gift of a 21st century program is, again, you can invite your outside community into your school to participate in providing unique opportunities for students. So in addition to our own in-house staff providing things like creative writing and swim instruction and crafts and book clubs and Pokemon, and we're also able to go into the community with our students and go bowling and go to Art Rise, and the St. Regis Canoe Outfitters is going to provide canoeing lessons. So we're able to take student interest, parent interest, and parent need and fund it through a stream that allows for maximum participation at no cost to any family. And it's also important to know that we have the YMCA as a partner in our work. And there's never been a call that the YMCA hasn't answered. During COVID, they provided emergency childcare for families who were essential employees. and they provide before and after school care in our district right here on campus. So children are in their own space and where they're safe and loved, and there's no transportation, and they have outstanding programming every day through the Y right here in Saranac Lake.
And so, is this the community schools? Is this something that extends K through 12? Is it just for younger children? How does that look like? What does that look like?
It actually extends farther than that. We really feel it's birth through whatever your end may look like, through college, through workforce. We were having a lot of conversation around that 18 to 24-year-old age and some needs for that community. So our goal is to support our students from birth to when they don't need us anymore, and then it would turn around because we'll support their kids as the next generation comes forward.
Right.
Wonderful.
So, Diane, when you first introduced this concept to the school board, to the district, no money is around from the state really to help with this. Why did you think it was so important? I mean, we talked about transportation as a specific need or challenge, but in general, why did you think this was so important? Nobody was saying you have to go do this. I mean, usually there's somebody telling the state or the federal government saying to the school district, you have to do this, right? But this was not one of those cases. So why did you think it was so important?
Well, we'd heard from our instructional staff that our students were coming to school with some gaps in their initial learning and kind of those fundamental items that you need in order to be successful when you enter school. And I did some research on that and really looked at what our community makeup is, and was surprised. I was a transplant to Saranac Lake in 2013 for this position. And you drive around Saranac Lake and you look at the $1 million homes, and there's a lot of community activity and arts, and it's a happening place to be. But when you dive below the surface, Franklin County has one of the highest poverty levels in New York State, including New York City. And when you look at educational levels and you really begin looking at our community, what you see is not who we are. And then when you begin looking at this is who we are, what does this demographic really need? And you look around and you see that our Franklin County tax dollars support the county, but all the county supports are in Malone. We started realizing that our families didn't have access. So if we want our kids to be successful, if we want the people who stay in Saranac Lake after graduation to be able to have a job and be successful, we've got to provide the supports. If we didn't, they were not available. And to be honest, New York State is way behind the rest of the country. Go to California, Nevada, even Chicago, Illinois. They've had community schools as part of their school fabric for decades, and it's new to New York State, but it was needed here in order for us to keep our community vibrant this generation and coming generations.
That's great. So I think it's important to mention this isn't an idea that New York State just came up with. It's been around for a while in the country, and now we're finally bringing it here. And so, Dan, you mentioned that Erika has recently secured a rather large grant, and I imagine as part of the grant application process for getting funding, whoever is giving us this funding wants to know things like, well, how are you going to measure that this is actually having an impact? And so what are some of those data points that we're going to be finding out, like how is this quote unquote working or not, for lack of a better term?
So the grant, the 21st Century Learning Center grant, has an evaluation team that looks at student growth in both math and ELA. And it also, I think, is very important to note that they measure social emotional growth. So we're not just looking at black and white on paper, but we're also looking at the whole child and what these experiences have provided them and their family. So at the end of our first year, a survey will go out to each student's teacher, asking them 5 simple questions about, have they seen improvement in behavior? Have they seen improvement in attendance? Because of the participation in the after school programming. And I can tell you, in my own home, my child can't wait for Thursdays because that's robotics day. He's going to be going bowling, and bowling like in the bowling alley, or like bowling at school. No, bowling in the bowling alley, right? And so I already know that I think our results are going to be outstanding because kids have asked for these programs. Something they've asked for is shoe tying, right? Somebody with a whole lot of patience to teach them how to tie their shoes. And so I think that right there is proof that this is working, because kids are finding their own needs. Right? So often we ask grown-ups, what do you need? How can we serve you? And oftentimes they don't know the answer. Kids know, right? Like, I want a snack. I want to learn how to tie my shoes. And hey, I really love Pokemon. Do you think that we could have a Pokemon club? And originally we were going to have one Pokemon club. And the excitement and the draw was so heavy, we now have 3 Pokemon groups going. And I tried to explain to all the grown-ups, nobody knows how to play Pokemon, so whatever you do is perfect. And they're like, all right.
Just humor them. That's great. I love again, you getting them out into the community, and one of the giving kids a sense of belonging, which is so important for our kids. And this idea, I remember when I was young, and I feel like every child has this, when you leave school, if you're out in your community and you see your teacher in the grocery store, you're almost shocked. Like, you exist outside the boundaries of the school. Like, what is this? And which is a funny thing, but it's great now that there's this intentional focus on getting adults and kids together after school, outside of the community, interacting with one another, and really building that whole sense of community. Which, I mean, we're a small town. This is the SL Effect Show. We talk about why we love SL and where it's going. But even though we're small, you can feel disconnected sometimes if you're not a part of something. And so it's just great to hear that this initiative is really making kids have that sense of belongingness. Yeah.
So it seems like this is a mechanism, right? So Diane, you talked about the true demographics, the socioeconomic condition of our families and students that might be a little bit different than the $1 million lakefront homes, right? Mm-hmm. And we already established, I think we all agree, it is a very supportive community, right? So, but the Community Schools Initiative seems to be a mechanism through which folks who have $1 million home can more directly support, or maybe it's another mechanism to support other families and the children in the community. I mean, that seems to be what's happening.
Yeah, and the family in the $1 million home can have a tragedy.
Absolutely.
And
right.
We become
True.
The one-stop shopping. So I'm a family that my $1 million home has burnt to the ground, and I need to start at zero. Who do I contact in the school to talk about what my kids might need, or ask questions? Or having a community school liaison and a single point of contact stops either nobody getting that information because people don't know who to contact, or 15 people in the school all trying to work independently because there's a child in elementary, middle, and high school. So all 3 buildings are working independently, not knowing what the other building is doing. And so here's a family that's in crisis, having to talk to 10 different people, not knowing what the other 9 are doing. It's helpful no matter who you are. And that just is an important point to us, is that this is for every family in our district, regardless of their socioeconomic status or what situation they might be in today, because tomorrow they could be in a different situation or have a different need. And we're here for every single family.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great point. All right, I've got 2 questions. And you don't have to, we can't be exhaustive with either of these. So you might leave something or somebody out, and I hope we don't offend anybody. But so the first question is, can you go through a list as many as you want to go through of partners that community partners that you're working with. And you might miss some, right? And that's just the way it is, because I think it's a pretty long list. But just to give everybody a flavor of all the different partners and organizations that you coordinate with.
Not including things like the Romanos for bowling and Art Rise and some others that are doing things directly with our grant. We have 20 partnering agencies. Do you want to lead our list, Eric?
Sure.
Eric is going to share the list.
So they even have a
They
list.
were ready
Okay,
to go.
they were
They
ready.
came prepared.
We didn't ask. We didn't tell them that ahead
No.
of time.
That-
They just have a
that's-
list.
That's part of community schools is we know who our partners are and we know the direct number to reach somebody who can help us. And that's often the first problem that you encounter when somebody brings you a unique situation is who do we reach out to?
Especially, and I have to make this, especially in a school district that straddles two counties, right? And one of these days we'll have a whole separate.
Oh, I know. You can't wait for that one.
I will go on
Yeah.
a rampage
Yep.
with that
I'm
one.
just going to
So
sit
that's
back.
that's for a different
I'll
day.
take that week off.
Yes.
You can do
Okay.
a solo
I'll
show
do a
on that.
solo
You
on
can
that
truly
day.
talk to yourself.
Yes. Right, exactly. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So to that point, we have partners in both counties. Essex County hosts a brief group, which is about how to coordinate programming and services for families in Essex County. And Franklin County has a SPOA and a system of care group. And I attend both so that I know who to call and I know their face for whatever the need might be. And so we were really the first school to join both of those groups because you had a person to do it, right? That's really the key here is the person that can do all of those meetings and talk about the work and the need. So both counties are open arms and very welcoming to our school district.
Great.
But we partner specifically with St. Joe's. We work with Hudson Headwaters. We work with Mountain Medical, which is our urgent care, citizen advocates, Clinton County Child Advocacy Center, the United Way of the Adirondack region, JCEO, ADK Wellness Connections, which is the division of AHI, which is not the hospital, and Saranac Lake Youth Center, the Community Connections of Franklin County. I'll let Diane take the rest of the list.
Behavioral Health Services North, Tri-Lake Center for Independent Living, North Country Community College, the Adirondack Gender Alliance, Catholic Charities, the Adirondack Foundation, YMCA of Malone, Grace Pantry, Adirondack Health, and the Cloud Splitter Foundation.
Really impressive, right?
Yes.
And it's probably going to keep growing as you become aware of and make new connections. But that's, I mean, each one of those we could talk about. But I think what I've been most excited about watching this over the years is what you already described, Erika, which is you being able to cut through all the acronyms and all the different programs and know exactly who to call depending on the situation and the need of the child or the family, which when you're in the middle of a crisis, like trying to navigate all that is the last thing that you've got the ability to do. So just one phone call and you can help with that. I think that's really beneficial.
Yeah, and it's just, this is a really weird analogy I'm going to make it, is that, you know, when something happens to someone in our community, oftentimes people rally around that family and they start something like a meal train and they're dropping off meals so they at least don't have to think about that. And that just is such a load off of somebody going through a stressful situation. And so, again, terrible analogy, but the community schools is really just this, I mean, the idea of a meal train of everybody helping out, but just blown up to every kind of agency area of need we can imagine. And so, we know you have to go in a couple of minutes. So I want to honor that time. Is there, if someone's listening to this podcast, I said if, because who knows?
Still debatable.
And they say, hey, I hadn't heard of this, or I did, but I didn't know much about it, and I want to help. I want to contribute. What would their first step be?
find out how many zeros in their bank account, and then no, so donations can always be made. And if you would like to make a specific donation for a certain need, oftentimes people wish to donate to help feeding children and families. We can designate your donation to serve a specific need in our district. And the checks are payable to the Saranac Lake School District and in the memo line, community schools. And so those funds, because they are specific to community schools, can be used for years to come. They aren't something that gets rolled over.
But we're also always expanding our community partnerships. And oftentimes there are things happening in our communities that we're just not aware of. Last year, through Connections, we actually worked with hospice and offered grief counseling and grief sessions with our students. And we just weren't aware that was available until somebody said, hey, we know somebody who you should talk to. So our list of partnering agencies is ever expanding, and we're appreciative. So if somebody's listening who says, oh, I'm connected to, or I know someone who would be a good partner, we encourage them to reach out, because every partner we have is a gift for some student that will need that at some point.
That's great. And so how does someone reach out? What's the email address? What phone number is it? That kind of stuff.
Sure. So my email is Bezio, BEZIOERI @slcs.org. And my phone number is 897-1467.
Perfect. Any last thoughts or anything else you want to say? We'll give you the last minute of your time and say, is there anything else you want to share before we have to say goodbye?
I would just say thank you. This started out as wouldn't this be valuable to our community? And it has grown in a way I never imagined it to grow. And the support is amazing. Erika is excellent at her job. Meg Farrell has joined us and is going to be a great addition. And a coming attraction is one of the things we have found the community does not have is a clearinghouse calendar for student activities. If you're new to the community, if you don't know the Facebook page that has youth basketball, you don't know how to get your student involved in youth basketball. So look for, by the end of this school year, that we will be reaching out to community organizations that do things for our students and trying to create a whole community calendar connection, so people have one-stop shopping for activities or other supports for their students.
I like the drop to community to youth basketball. Diane knows that made me happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we see how things work around here. Okay.
Well, thank you both so much. We really appreciate your time. And again, if we ever a time where you want to come back on the podcast and talk about something going on, we're more than willing to happy to do that. So thank you again both for your time today.
Yeah, and thanks for all you're doing. It's a great initiative.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Episode 6 in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
okay.
we didn't even talk about a village accounting system.
No, we
software.
didn't. No.
So we're going to end it before
you missed
I
that.
start
You missed
doing
the summary of the
Right.
village accounting system, which
So-
is still very exciting that you can pay your water bill online. I'm never going to let that go.
Yes.
I'm pumped about that.
Yeah.
So again, you want to give them the
Happen.
It's
Well,
happening.
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there we go.
See, I told you that's
sharing
the selling point.
information. Right.
Nothing else matters if you can
Yes.
pay your water bill online. Everyone's pumped. Okay.
All right. So yes. So we'll share Erika's phone number in our show notes, as they call it, and also your email address. But remember, you can reach out to us anytime on Facebook or Saranac Lake Effects Show at gmail.com.
There it is. See you next time.